Real Virginia is proudly produced by the Virginia Farm Bureau Federation. Since 1926, Farm Bureau has been working to preserve Virginia farms and our rural heritage. Visit our website at vafb.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to Real Virginia, a show about Virginia agriculture and the people who produce the wonderful local products we enjoy. Brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. A teacher in a city school has won this year's award for agriculture in the classroom. Crabapple trees have a purpose beyond pretty spring blossoms. And the threat of avian flu has backyard chicken owners concerned.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
Welcome back to Real Virginia, everyone. We're coming to you this week from Spreading Acres Farm in Amelia County. We'll have more on the avian flu story in a bit, but first, Burke Moeller interviews the Virginia Agriculture in the Classroom Teacher of the Year.
This year's Virginia Agriculture in the Classroom winner is using language and literature to introduce her 5th grade students to new types of agriculture. Miriam Thomas, who teaches at Barack Obama Elementary School in Richmond, received this year's award in February at a special ceremony that included her students, her principal, and even her parents.
I really just wanted to deepen my students' level of understanding of what it means to grow food, harvest it, the equipment that's used, the hard work that goes into it. So we read farm-to-table books.
One book in particular, Esperanza Rising, was at the center of her lesson plan. The novel mentions a variety of fruits and vegetables which Thomas brought to class. She discussed how they're cultivated and which ones are grown in Virginia, and she described the farms that produce them. Students also learned how to cook and prepare the foods and brought home recipe books for their parents and caregivers.
I gave them recipes of each, 2 for each produce, so they're going home with 24 different recipes to cook at home, so they can be more hands-on with it as well. We talked about alternative uses for produce.
Principal Jennifer Moore has been able to see firsthand the dedication Thomas has to her students.
You can tell the love is there and that she cares for her children. And that's the first part of being a great educator, is being able to show your love for the children even without saying it. She's done this from day one since she started with us.
The Agriculture in the Classroom website has been particularly helpful for educators during the pandemic, offering lesson plans, multimedia units, and other ways to learn. Tammy Maxey is the program director for the Virginia Agriculture in the Classroom and says Thomas's unique approach toward agriculture education caught everyone's attention.
Her integration of agricultural concepts through language arts, culinary skills, writing skills, and research skills took quite a different angle than the others who were her competitors in this competition, and it really made her stand out. Also, working in an urban environment and integrating these agricultural basics to students who don't have that opportunity in their daily lives will broaden their horizons, impacting their career decisions, impacting possible academic decisions as they move forward. That really rose her to the top this year.
Thomas has had a long-standing interest in agriculture, beginning when she was around her students' age.
I grew up visiting my great-grandparents' farm in Amelia, Virginia. My grandma grew up there, so I've just grown up with stories of what that was like for her. My great-uncle William got a degree. He's an agronomist, and he won't call it Virginia Tech. It has to be VPI, or you say the whole name out loud. You're a slacker if you say tech. So this was sort of to honor them, my time growing up on the farm, my great-grandfather's hard work.
As part of her award, Thomas will receive a check for $500 and will represent Virginia at the National Agriculture in the Classroom Conference in New York this June. In Richmond, Virginia, I'm Burke Moeller reporting.
The Agriculture in the Classroom program has been around for more than 40 years. Recognizing that America no longer has an agriculture-based economy, farm industry leaders and educators joined forces to establish a national umbrella group in 1981. Each state has an AITC program. Virginia Agriculture in the Classroom began in 1987. Like many other state programs, the Virginia one is directly aligned with Virginia's standards of learning for students. You can learn more about Virginia's program and check out their teacher resources on their website, virginia.agclassroom.org.
I'm Mark Viet. Coming up on In the Garden, we're going to talk about crab apples, so stay with us.
We're stronger together, especially at this difficult time. For over 90 years, we've watched our membership grow, and we're honored to be part of such a special community. Thank you to the farmers who provide for us every day. Virginia Farm Bureau is proud to serve our members, their families, and to give back to our local communities. That's the Farm Bureau way.
Did you know apple trees need a partner to make fruit? Mark Viet tells us why crabapple trees are important. In the Garden.
Crab apples are showy in their spring with their white, pink, deep pink flowers. But the added benefit to crab apples are the beautiful fruit that they produce. Now, in most cases, crab apples are determined to be crab apples by the size of the fruit, where apples, are larger. And not only is the fruit very showy, but it feeds the wildlife. It feeds deer, it feeds mockingbirds, it feeds robins, and many other things will feed on the beautiful fruit in the fall. Crab apples are also great pollinators for apple trees. So homeowners might have a crab apple and an apple because you need cross-pollination. And then apple orchards, in many cases, are surrounded by a variety of different crab apples to also help in the pollination. This variety here is red jade. This here is the old-fashioned heirloom Williamsburg apple. You can see the size difference between an apple and a crab apple. When I was talking about pollination, some plants don't self-pollinate. Blueberries usually don't self-pollinate. That means you need different types of the plant to cross-pollinate. Sometimes it's by wind, sometimes it's by pollinators, sometimes it's by bees. So you do need to have different types in your garden that bloom at the same time. Now, if you collect the seed from this apple, you are not going to end up with this apple. So most of these trees are grafted, where they take a root and they take a bud or a stem and they form a union. So this tree has been grafted. Let's go look at some other great crab apples. The Sargent's crab apple is a great reseeding crab apple that feeds the birds. Has beautiful small yellow fruit. And I have to tell you, the cedar waxwings, the mockingbirds, even I believe bluebirds love to feed on this beautiful yellow Sargent's crab apple. Some of the varieties of crab apples produce a lot of fruit. Fantastic for the birds, but you don't want to plant that near walkways going into your home or near a patio or near a highway, because you can track in the rotten fruit all over your house. You can compost the old fruit. So if you have a lot of old fruit like this, but it's going to be gone. The deer are going to come and eat all of this fruit, but you can compost the old fruit in your compost pile. They're different shapes. The crabapple behind me is nice and tall, whereas red jade is a beautiful weeping variety that you could put a little sitting bench under. I'm Mark Viet. Join me next time in the garden.
For more garden tips, go to inthegardenradio.com.
Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley. Coming up, pan-roasted baby lamb chops. Delicious recipe. We hope you'll stay with us.
And now, a sneak peek into a day in the life of a Virginia dairy cow. They get their day started. They have some lunch. get some exercise, spend time with their friends, and then end their day with dairy sweet dreams. Real dairy, real life, real delicious.
Lamb is a traditional dish for many spring holidays. Chef Tammy Brawley has a special recipe for lollipop lamb chops in the heart of the home.
Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen, and we are here today to create some gorgeous and delicious baby lamb chops. First, we want to start with a marinade. We have got some red wine vinegar that we're going to add a little bit more to. 4 tablespoons of red wine vinegar to our bowl for our marinade. And then we are going to add 4 tablespoons of honey. Find it a little easier to take tops off. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to add a tablespoon of herbes de Provence. We're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we're going to add one of my favorite ingredients, and that is garlic. We're going to add the garlic to our marinade, and we're going to whisk those ingredients up. And if you don't have honey but you have agave, feel free to go ahead and use that. It is a great substitute. You could almost even use maple syrup. It might be a little sweeter than what you're used to, but I certainly would recommend either the honey or the agave. And the great thing about this marinade is at the end we are going to actually boil it for a little while, and then it's going to produce a nice little sauce to serve on top of the lamb chops. So our marinade is ready. So what we've done here is we have baby lamb chops that we've already broken down. You could feel free to clean up a little bit more of the fat if you want. I find it to be better to leave because it's much more flavorful. And we want our handy dandy Ziploc bag. Put our lamb chops in the bag. You could do this in a pan if you prefer. That's totally fine. You just want to get as much marinade into the chops as you possibly can. So we have our marinade we've created. We're going to add that to the Ziploc bag with our lamb chops. You want to seal your Ziploc bag. It's kind of an important step. And move those chops around. These go into our refrigerator for about a 1/2 hour, and then we're going to come back and sear them off and reduce our marinade. All right, and we're back. Our lamb chops have marinated in the marinade in the refrigerator for about a 1/2 hour. We're going to turn our burner on. About a medium-high should work. You want enough oil to cover the bottom of your pan. You want it to be nice and hot before you add any sort of product to a fat. We're going to open our Ziploc bag. We're going to pull our lamb chops out. These take about 2 minutes maybe per side, maybe a little less depending on how you like it. That marinade of herbes de Provence and red wine vinegar and a little honey and a little salt. All right, don't toss away your marinade. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. So we want to go about 2 to 3 minutes or so. And what you want to do is you want to let these release on their own. A lot of people tend to put things into a pan and even on their grills, and then they immediately go back and want to try to flip it. What would happen is it's going to stick to the bottom, and we don't want that. We want to develop a nice char or brown caramelization marks on them, so you do want to let them release on their own. That's a very important step. Always remember that something bigger takes longer to cook than something smaller. So I have one that's a little thinner, so I'm going to go ahead and flip that one first. Let's see what it looks like on the other side. Absolutely perfect. Nice and brown. That's what I'm looking for on all of them. That one's just about done. I set that one in last. Here's another one that's absolutely perfect. I'm going to turn that over. You might remember I said only about 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes maybe for total. Oh, these are just about all done. This is fantastic. Now what you're going to do is you're going to come back and add that delicious marinade. It's going to sizzle immediately. We're going to basically reduce down our marinade. So even with our heat off, it is still cooking as you see. Anytime you marinate a raw meat like that, if you want to still reserve the marinade for a sauce, It's very important that you come back and get that to a boiling temperature for about a minute or so, maybe 2 to 3, depending on how much marinade there is. And now we're going to pour this delicious sauce over top of our baby lamb chops. Oh my gosh. I wish y'all could smell this. All right. There we have it. Pan-roasted baby lamb chops marinated in a red wine vinegar, a honey, some herbs de Provence, and a little bit of salt. Marinate them for about a half an hour. Cook them in your pan for about 2 to 3 minutes or so. Platter them and then reduce your sauce. I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen. Join us next time on Heart of the Home.
Recipes from the Heart of the Home can be found on the Virginia Farm Bureau website at vafb.com/recipes, as well as on Chef Tammy Brawley's website at greenkitchenrichmond.com.
Sheep and lambs continue to be important livestock for farmers in western Virginia, where mountain pastures are best suited to smaller ruminants. There were 72,000 sheep on Virginia farms in 2020, a drop of 6,000 head from the year before. Sheep numbers vary from year to year, depending on market prices and predator losses. 9,000 lambs were lost to coyotes and other predators in 2019. For decades, wool was an important byproduct of sheep, but the wool market has all but disappeared. Now some farmers raise hair sheep, varieties that don't need to be sheared every year and are kept solely for meat production.
Avian influenza can be deadly to poultry flocks and is spread by migratory birds. Barry Ridgway tells us that this contagious disease is more than just a worry to farmers.
The poultry industry is Virginia's largest sector of agriculture, worth almost $2 billion in 2019. In addition to providing meat and eggs, the industry creates a large demand for Virginia soybeans and corn. So when the HPAI virus, or highly pathogenic avian influenza, appeared in North Carolina and some Virginia waterfowl earlier this year, the state veterinarian's office called for increased biosecurity protocols. But the risk is not for just commercial chicken and turkey growers. Thousands of Virginia families have their own backyard flocks these days, and they're potentially more exposed. Chris Allen of Fresh Branch Farm in Chesterfield County has had chickens for years and takes the threat seriously.
So it's important to honor your biosecurity on any farm, whether you have a large operation or a small backyard flock. You're not visiting other farms. You're keeping your chickens covered. They're catching it from migratory birds that are flying with their waste. And that's why we're really careful to sanitize any of our shoes or clothes when we're traveling off the farm.
Knowing the signs and symptoms of avian flu can prevent its spread.
If you're not used to the signs or don't know what to look for, your flock can be devastated before you're able to respond. It's a highly infectious, highly contagious disease that can result in you basically losing your entire flock.
While larger poultry operations practice biosecurity every day, it is just as important for small farms and backyard flocks to step up their efforts to keep their birds healthy.
For those individual owners and those families that rely on those chickens or other fowl for eggs or maybe for meat that they're going to feed their families, it can be a significant loss.
You're looking for lethargic birds. You're looking for unexplained deaths in your flock.
Warning signs can include reduced feed intake, reduced egg production, misshapen eggs, swelling of the face and hocks, sneezing, coughing, and nasal discharge. Many of the infected birds will die.
If your backyard poultry do survive an outbreak of high-path avian influenza, the egg set is going to be greatly reduced. They will be listless, they'll have respiratory issues, and their rate of gain, if you're raising the birds for meat, is going to diminish dramatically. So they won't be the same birds.
There is no treatment for the sick birds, so prevention is key. Isolation of a flock is one of the best ways to prevent them from getting sick. Good sanitation is also vital. The virus can be picked up on shoes in office parks, on golf courses, and other outdoor areas and spread to backyard flocks. So wearing farm-only shoes and clothing is essential to slow the virus spread. Disinfecting shoes is another important step in protecting your birds. It's also best to limit visits to other farms. Viruses can live on manure and feathers for several months, so clean up after your birds.
Likewise, wash your hands and practice good personal hygiene. If you're borrowing tools from a neighbor or you're lending tools, make sure those are sanitized before you use them on your property, and make sure you clean them before you return them.
It's always best to purchase new chicks and ducklings from a trusted dealer, not just anyone.
Someone who's certified under the National Poultry Improvement Plan, and that will help guarantee that the young fowl that you're receiving are likely to be disease-free.
So our backyard flock, they are livestock and not pets. So they needed to be treated like that, whether they are a family pet or not. If there is a virus present in your flock, you need to take it very seriously.
For more information, search online for the USDA's website for their Defend the Flock program. You can also contact your local county extension office. In Chesterfield County, I'm Barry Ridgway reporting.
We're so glad you could join us this week to celebrate all the bounty Virginia has to offer. From the kitchen to your home and garden to our beautiful wide open spaces, we are proud to say that this is Real Virginia. For everyone from the Virginia Farm Bureau, thanks for watching. Make it a great week.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
I think some of sustainability to farmers just comes second nature. If you asked a farmer, are you sustainable? They'd probably look at you maybe a little funny and say, I don't think I'm doing anything that special, but it really is just what they do. We're all farmers, and our goal is taking the best care of our land, our cattle, our natural resources.
Some people, when the economy goes soft, they can move, or their job shuts down, or their plant moves. Farming, we don't move. We stay put here. And so we're concerned about the environment, the air, the water quality.
All of us play a role in the system, and we have stake in it. And I think we should exercise that power we have in the food system.
Hi, I'm Tara Vanderdusen. I work here with all of my husband and my brother-in-laws and my father-in-law on our family dairy farm here in eastern New Mexico. Here in New Mexico, one of our most precious resources is our water. We just are in, varying levels of droughts throughout the last several years, as well as just a declining water table. And so one of the most important things we can do is conserve our water. And one area where we use a lot of water is watering our crops. And so one thing that we have done is we are changing out the variety of crops that we plant. So this behind me is hay grazer, which is a drought-tolerant crop.
One of my favorite parts of our sustainability stories is actually what we feed our cows. If you're wearing cotton right now, when you make cotton, there's a seed that's left over. And so our cattle actually eat that. It's a great source of protein for them. Another piece of our sustainability story is that we use peanut shells for bedding for our calves. As we all know, on dairy farms, there is a lot of cow manure, but we actually use that cow manure, we compost it, all of it, and we use it out on our fields to improve our soil health.
So sometimes when I tell people that I'm an environmental scientist working on the farm, it kind of surprises people, but it's really a crucial job in being able to make sure that we're properly managing our soil and our water. As an environmental scientist and as a mom, one of the things that's really important to me is making sure the quality of our water is absolutely at standard and above standard, because the water that we're feeding our cows and we're using on our farms is the same water that ultimately ends up in our house, that we are drinking, that we are using every single day.
I'm Doug Darling, and I'm an owner partner with Darling Farms LLC. Our farm's been in our family since 1833. The family migrated from Massachusetts here and settled, and we've been farming ever since. Here on our farm, we've been predominantly no-till since the early 80s, when my dad first tried no-till corn back in like 83. Where we're standing right now is the middle of one of our filter strips. We've got over 49 acres of filter strips on our farm. And what this is under the Conservation Reserve Program, CRP. This filter strip then captures any of the nutrients that might migrate off my cornfield and that possibly would get into where we periodically get flooding because of the development upstream. And so what we've done is to help mitigate any of that plant food from leaving our property and getting into the water and upsetting the water quality. We've installed these filter strips on a number of our farms. This is our cover crop, and it's a three-way. And what it is, we have oats, we have soybeans, and then we have radishes. And what this does is it captures any of the nutrients that still might be in the soil that was not utilized by the wheat. You can see the wheat stubble here. That's from this summer's crop when we harvested in July. So we've had multiple decades of trying to do things that are good for the environment, good for the soil, and good for water.
I'm Kamal Bell. I'm a first-generation farmer. A lot of farms like fourth generation or sixth generation, and they already have an infrastructure in place. So literally, when the older farmer gets ready to transition, it's a much easier transition just to give the whole operation to the kids or to someone in the family. But for us, we've had to start literally with nothing. It was an idea that I had. It was a passion, and I take a lot of pride in that, just knowing that I'll be able to do that for my sons. Farming is definitely not easy. I think, especially people my age, I don't think anyone has a job harder. And I solely say that because you're dealing with so many different parameters. You're dealing with the weather, you have to be a carpenter, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a scientist, you have to be a botanist, you have to be a chemist, you have to be all these different roles as a farmer. When I was in college, I learned about something called food deserts. And I started to learn on how food, especially healthy food, wasn't made accessible to certain communities based on their socioeconomic status. So instead of me just being like, man, like that's unfair, I decided I was gonna do something or try to do something about it. So I literally changed my major, and I switched from animal science to animal industry, and I just set out on a path to be able to grow food, and our mission here is to get it to people who are affected by food deserts. Sustainability to me means longevity. It's like I value the moment, but I also like to think about things long term. And that's why the youth are so important, because without them being involved and them learning and being exposed to these ideas now, we can't ensure that farming is going to look the way we want it to look if we don't incorporate the youth. I definitely want this to be a family, something that stays in the family long term.
This is my sustainability story.